Welcome to the Busy Brain Podcast, where we will be diving deep into the world of mental health. I am your host, Reese Lambe, and here we break down barriers and show you that you are never alone in this journey.
Guys, honestly, I'm so excited for this episode. I think it's gonna be so good. Ooh, ready to rumble. Okay, so when I got in contact with Lauren, it was very much so a reaching out about something that her and her boyfriend started. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but I really want to dive into Zilkins Vision and what was the beforehand of that, and why did you guys decide okay, we need to do something, we need to do something now?
Yeah, so again, Danny and I have been together for a very long time. So conversations about starting ZV actually started when we were quite young, pretty early on.
Really?
Yeah, I just remember there being these moments where I would text him and I'd be like, I want to do something. I don't want to be that couple in the future that is fortunate enough to have the platform that hopefully we will have with you being a hockey player. And that just sits on it. That doesn't feel right to me. And so he was really lucky, again, Guelph just being the amazing place that it is. He had a captain in his first season, maybe I guess his second year was COVID, but his first season, that actually started a foundation to donate money.
I saw this.
Yeah. So Cam, his name is Cam Hillis. He started a foundation to donate money to youth sport organizations. I think he was donating predominantly to Jumpstart, the Canadian Tire one. And then a couple years prior, so this was before Danny's time with the team, but still had a really prominent role in Guelph, was Garrett McFadden's movement, which is really big.
Yes.
They have a big platform, and it's been around for at least 7-8 years now. And that was all focused on mental health, specifically youth sport mental health. So ours is a little bit different in that we didn't really specify youth sport, pro sport, whatever. But those were two really big things that kind of showed us it's possible. And if you commit to it, your platform here as a junior hockey player can be used for some good. And we really wanted to do that. So obviously Danny and I have both had our own challenges and struggles with the past. I'm not going to air all of his dirty laundry on here. I'm sure he won't love that, but I'm sure people can imagine he got drafted to the OHL when he was 15 because he has a really late birthday.
So young.
Yeah, moved away from home when he was 15. And then by the age of, actually when he was 15, he was playing for Team Ontario at the Canada Winter Games, and then a year later he was playing for Team Canada for the first time. He's been on a big stage since he was little itty bitty human.
He's been washed his whole life.
A little tiny thing. And so I'm sure people can imagine, without me explicitly saying, just the amount of pressure that he's been under, and what that can do to somebody who's young and doesn't really know how to cope with that yet.
How would they have any idea how?
Oh yeah, because no one also talks about it. Nobody teaches them, right?
No one talks about
it. It's just here's your Team Canada jersey, go represent your country, you little 16-year-old nugget, have fun. And they're okay. And then when that doesn't go well, there's no one there to be hey, here's how we're going to get you through this. Which I like to think that I've sort of taken on that role a little bit for him, which is good, and he's lucky that I'm studying what I'm studying and can actually provide that.
Boyfriend.
But yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And then for me personally, I have struggled with anxiety for as long as I can remember. Some of that definitely came from sport. I was a competitive dancer, and dance is probably the worst sport to participate in if you're anxious. Dance, gymnastics, anything where you're judged subjectively.
And you're just you're looked at in every single
not to mention the whole body image. Oh my god, it was horrific. And a lot of those things do still affect me nowadays, even though I'm 2 years retired from my dance career and haven't competed in 6 years. It doesn't just disappear.
It's conditioned.
It's conditioned. Right? It becomes part of who you are and part of the way that you see the world, and it's a lot. And so
your value in yourself.
Yes, it becomes attributed to other people because that's what you grew up with, right? And so yeah, I've struggled a lot with that my whole life. Danny's been a really key person for me in figuring that out, and has been kind of that solid foundation for me to figure those things out. But both of us have had our own issues, and so because of that, we didn't want people to feel the way that we often felt, where it's like, oh, I'm the only person going through this. I can't talk to anyone about it. I don't know where to even start to talk about it. It's a normal thing. And it's like, everyone does feel that way and it should be normalized, but it also like shouldn't be normalized to be silent about it. And I think that's what's happening right now, is that like everyone feels this way, but it's so normalized to just like suck it up, quote unquote, and like be a man and deal with it. Versus like
you asked for this, you want to, like, you're
exactly, like you signed up for it, like you're lucky that you're on that team and having that pressure. And like, again, yes, like you are lucky that you made Team Canada at the age of whatever, and you know, have the opportunity to do all those things, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's such a challenging experience.
There's so much pressure.
There's so much pressure. It's literally ridiculous. Like nationally televised games at the age of 15, like
it's ridiculous.
Who came up with that idea, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it's a lot. And so I think both of us were kind of the mentality of like, we don't want other people to feel like they have to go through it alone. And there also just needs to be like a culture shift in sports, and especially in something like hockey that is so like hyper masculine, and like there's just so many issues around like talking about things. That was kind of our goal with CV, is to like be this platform that normalizes these conversations, and like using Danny as kind of that example, and then also looping in his teammates when possible to like show like everyone, even these super high profile, really talented, skilled people struggle with things. And like, it's okay if you are too, just like here are some resources to help you get through that, to understand it better. So we kind of tried to tackle it through several different ways, like fundraising for the Canadian Mental Health Association. We've done like informational posts based on like what I'm learning in school, like content that I've created to help inform and like educate.
Informative, that's good.
Yeah, which is like huge, like that self-awareness piece. It's big. So like we've tried to tackle it through several different ways. We haven't done anything in a little bit, just transitioning into school and then him transitioning to professional hockey. Like it was so much at once that like we've just had to kind of put things on pause for a little bit. But it's also really hard to do things when you're like 1,000 kilometers away from each other.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a
I'm
second.
like, can you do this for me? And he's like, yeah, I will later. And then he's on the ice and I'm at school, and it's just a hot mess. Yeah, but that's where it started, and that's still kind of the driving force behind it, is just showing people like, hey, these things are okay to experience, and here's what you can do to help yourself and other people.
Yeah, you're so right with like this divide between the two, like that there's like this the lens that like everyone struggles and it's okay to struggle, but like we don't really talk about it still. And like yes, like as a society, like as a whole, we've built up to like this aspect where we can talk about it, because even if I look back to when I was 12 and I like that's when my struggles were the most prominent, like 12 years old is so crazy. Like you're so young, you don't understand anything.
You don't.
So it's hard because I kind of look at that, and then I find that there's categories, and people put themselves in categories, and it's either it's okay to struggle with these like little aspects or these things, like, but like you just gotta suck it up, get through it, and you'll get better. Like it'll go away. You'll be okay. Like this too shall pass, which is like I promote that to everyone.
Of course.
But that being said, with like this too shall pass thing, it's also like you talking about these issues and like these players and like these athletes, especially like dancing competitively, like the
oh my gosh,
it takes like
it's such a
that
effed up environment.
Yeah, like I never danced. Like I've had close friends of mine dance, and like actually one of like my close friends in high school was a competitive dancer, and she's fucking incredible.
Yeah,
she knows who she is. But she's an incredible person, and the shift that dancing can have, like like I don't know how to explain it. Like she's like the most bubbly, like outgoing, amazing soul like I've ever met. And then I also like can see, like I like look at her and I'm also like, there's no way in hell that like someone could ever like beat her down. Like how are you gonna look at someone like that, like full of life and full of joy and full of happiness?
They find
and
a way.
Put it this way, I think that it's so amazing that you guys have started this, because I think that there's a divide in conversation and mental illness. And so mental illness, people feel, this is my take at least, is that people think that if we're going to talk about it, that means like quote unquote, there's an
Mhm.
issue, right?
Mhm.
Like I have an anxiety disorder. I have
Yes.
depression.
Yes.
I have a personality issue.
Right.
Like there's when in reality,
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, it's anxiety that can just be conversated
Yeah.
about, or
Yeah.
8 times out of 10,
Yeah.
it's anxiety that we can talk through,
Mhm.
communicate with each other, and
Mhm.
realize that, hey, like, we're working ourselves up here for really nothing.
Yeah.
You don't, like, no one's telling you need to go sit down with a psychiatrist,
No.
go get a diagnosis,
No.
get medicated.
Need to. That's also fine.
That's also fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think everything nowadays is getting very over pathologized.
Yes.
Is like the clinical way to say that, right? Where human experience is being framed as this thing to fear, this thing that you have to label, that you have to go and get some kind of intensive treatment. And again, some people do genuinely need that, right? Like they do in order to be stable and to live a life that is safe. But there's also a lot of normality, and like everyone is going to experience anxiety. Everyone is going to have days where they feel depressed compared to normal. Most people struggle with attention at certain points in their life, even if they don't have diagnosed ADHD, right? Like, but we've developed this stigma in society of like having those normal human experiences means that you have what you just said. Oh, I have this disorder. And again, some people do, and then you go and get treated for that, and that's nothing to be ashamed of either, because there's so many factors, whether it's biology or childhood trauma or any of the things I could list that go into those things that, you know, create those experiences and disorders that people experience that you need more intensive treatment for. But there's also, I think, especially among athletes, it's like even those normal human experiences are being pathologized in that way. And that's where that stigma is coming from, right? It's like, well, I can't ever feel anxious. I can't ever feel depressed because that means that I am anxious.
In that
I am
category,
depressed.
yes.
Right. And that's not true.
That's not, no, at all.
Like I don't consider myself to be somebody that has depression, but there are days where I feel depressed. Like it's very hard for me to like get up and get moving in the morning because I'm not happy. I do identify as somebody who has more of a clinically prevalent anxiety disorder, so that's a little bit different. But like I have days where I feel other things. It doesn't mean I have those disorders. Like it's a human experience.
Yes, it's okay.
Yes, it's okay. And everyone has those things, and it's being able to actually talk about them with the people in your life, whether it is a professional like a therapist or somebody, if you're fortunate enough to have access to that, or whether it's just like close friends or family or your partner or whoever. To be able to normalize that and realize like that's okay. It's just a matter of like coping with it effectively.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Am I gonna look at myself and say, get rid of this anxiety and this overthinking?
Right.
No, I'm gonna have to hush it and say, shh.
And it's learning
stop.
how to cope with it, right? There's a time and a place to let that come out, and
there's a time and place where it's not. And that being said, there's people like you, right, that are studying these things so that in those moments in time, on a game day even, like how can we, from now to game time, get you in a better headspace?
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of the work
and it's
that I
possible.
do with athletes. It is super possible. Yeah. And again, if it's not possible, that's probably indicative of something much bigger going on that then probably warrants some kind of outside treatment, right? Like, and I will say, like, a lot of people I think have a stigma about labeling. For some people, labels can be really empowering, right? Like, oh, I have this thing that I know that I have. I identify with that. It gives me a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and a sense of understanding for myself. That's also totally fine. Like, if you're the kind of person, like I have had friends and clients that I've worked with in the past that have been really gung-ho about getting a diagnosis because they want that.
I was the exact same.
Right. And so like that totally makes sense to me too, right? It's when it crosses that line into like we're throwing a label on everything, even those normal human everyday experiences.
Just having anxiety for a test, which is normal.
Which is normal, right? Like I always, when I'm trying to explain that to a client, I always use the analogy of a bear, right? Like if there is an actual bear, like you are on a hike and there is a bear in front of you, you should feel afraid. You should feel anxious.
Like, no
we don't need to call that anxiety. That's not an anxiety disorder. That's a natural human response, right? It's the same thing when somebody has had a history of trauma. Like if they experience something that reminds them of that trauma, we don't need to necessarily label that as pathology because that's a normal human response to the thing that they experienced, right? But it's like if somebody has that same feeling of like, oh shit, there's a bear in front of me when there's no bear whatsoever, that's
With
indicative
no
of the bigger
issues,
problem.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's pathologizing those normal things, those typical things. That's where I get frustrated. And I think a lot of it comes from the system that we're in. And that's why I use the word frustrated, because it ultimately comes down to like, as a psychologist, I have to give somebody a label in order to treat them through insurance. And like it sucks because then I'm labeling people that shouldn't be labeled.
Yeah.
Because
like I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
like, even,
it's
like,
really
for myself,
challenging.
Like, I have labels that like at the time helped,
feels fitting, right?
and it feels okay and proper, and it feels like this. But then now I'm like, did you know me?
Right. And people change and you grow out of things, but
Yeah.
it's really hard in the system.
And now that
we're
I
in
have
to get
this
rid of
like
it.
that I have this like title, as for example, I'm a borderline patient. You would know the stigmatizing around borderline patients.
Probably one of the worst.
And I don't feel like I'm a borderline patient,
right?
Like, at all.
Right.
I hate the diagnosis. I shouldn't. Like, I'm here like advocating for all this shit, but like,
that's okay. Though.
I'm literally like enraged by it because I find that like it's so much like you want to be in this hole, you want to feel like shit, you want to struggle with mental health, when in reality it's like all my brain is thinking is how can I get out of this hole that I'm in. It's just like the implementing this into my everyday life.
Yeah.
Which like in turn though, in time, through therapy, through practice, through communication, through amazing support systems, I have been able to get out of that headspace. I've also been able to stop looking at everyone thinking everyone hates me, and I'm also not in my own head 20 yes, I'm in my own head 24/7, but it's not an awful place to be all the time anymore. Right? Like I love being alone. I've never liked that before. And when I have this like conversation about it, it's like you were gonna look at me like a regular. If I just told you right off the nose and you had no idea who I am, like I'm a borderline patient, the label that you can go to me so fast of like, I'm not gonna believe stuff she's gonna say right now. I'm not gonna. She's over exaggerating. She's lying. There's so many things. And like I've met borderline patients that I'm like, that's why you give me a bad name. This is why.
Right. Of course.
Like, but then I'm like, okay, well, like, no, it's not why, and then you get mad at yourself because you're like,
it's such a battle.
It's a really big battle.
It is a battle.
Honestly, at the end of the day, you don't need a diagnosis because fuck, they get annoying.
They do.
But
they do.
I've been medicated now. My life has changed significantly.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And you would never ever know I'm a borderline patient unless like I can't like put the the relevance and like facts together. If it doesn't like control doesn't make sense, they don't make sense.
Right.
But like I think that we need to intellectualize all of these little aspects of life to make ourselves feel better, which in turn I put on to people.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, okay, well maybe it's this, and then you're sitting there like, whoa, like you're stressing me out, like stop. Whereas like me, I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm like, okay, we're chilling,
right?
And you're like,
right.
So we're gonna die,
right?
And I'm like, yeah, but it's okay.
Jumping to all these,
I'm like, it's okay, it's fine. And they're like,
okay, all right.
So like I'm trying to get better at it, but like not putting the way I cope onto other people.
Yeah, that's incredibly important.
Right? Like there's this huge disconnect between conversation, diagnosis, and just normal human experience.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. So
absolutely.
All of that being said, like to summarize like this conversation, it's so crucial to talk about things that you think are normal that we don't need to talk about. We need to talk about them or they're not going anywhere.
That's true.
And you don't also necessarily need a diagnosis to feel the way that you want to feel. If you guys are going into a game, you're going to compete at a dance competition, you have a recital coming up, you have a duo you're doing with someone who you've never danced before.
It's natural to
That's
feel
natural
intimidated.
to feel intimidated, stressed, overwhelmed, sick to your stomach. That doesn't mean you have panic disorder because you're gonna throw up.
No.
Like,
in fact, a little bit of anxiety is usually good for performance. Yeah.
Like, so let's say the takeaway is it's okay to not be okay, and not being okay doesn't mean that there's like an even bigger underlying issue.
No.
Like,
there's normalcy.
we're okay. Let's take it one step at a time. There's normal. Yes, I love that. Okay, there's normalcy in experience.
Yeah.
Like, there's also normalcy in shitty experience,
Yeah.
good experience,
Yeah.
traumatic
Everything.
experience,
It's common.
fun, happy, everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so amazing. And then the last kind of topics I want to touch on here is you just got a new job, right?
I
For
do.
doctor, like you're doing an internship.
I actually got a new job in May working for the Toronto Blue Jays as a mental performance specialist.
Miss Girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we gonna go to a game in the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
I went to a few. It was
Perfect.
a lot of fun this summer. Yes.
Okay, I'll be really insulted if I don't get an invite this year.
Get an invite.
Anyways, so beforehand, before that, I know that you were posting like on, I think it was TikTok, right?
Yes.
TikTok, Instagram, like this, like the whole like couple things for just like regular like day-to-day life like content and like being with your boyfriend and in hockey. Funniest part about it is I like to say this is the same thing with me, is the TikToks that I get the most viral are the ones about my boyfriend and the ones that are about hockey, because so many people have this completely different persona on it.
Gosh, yeah.
So if you want to like, and I know that yours is the same, like your TikToks actually blew up too from like hockey content, so I'd love to like kind of dive into that.
Yeah, so I think maybe like 2 or so years ago, I think actually the first TikTok that I made that like kind of went viral was actually about Zilkins Vision. Like it was like one of those like POV, your boyfriend, like you and your boyfriend launched your mental health org that you've been talking about for like whatever.
No, as I feel like I saw that.
Yeah, and like it was just like a whole bunch of pictures of like literally within the first week that we launched CV, we got like so much like traction about it. Like we had an article published on NHL.com, like all these big things.
It, so good.
Yeah, and so like I posted all the screenshots from that, and like that blew up, and that was like the first TikTok I had that like kind of blew up, that I like didn't make as like haha funny, this is like a joke for my friends, like a video of us like dancing after we had like a drink or two. Like this was like a legit this was like a legit TikTok, right? And so that one got a little bit of traction. I made another one like a couple weeks later that also got a decent amount of traction, and I was like, interesting, okay. And then I just kind of started using TikTok as like my own personal video diary. Like I never really had an intention of like, oh, I want to like gain followers and like make something out of this. I was never into like making money off of it. But I was just like, it's fun for me. Like I can imagine myself like 5 years from now to like be able to look back on this and be like, oh, I remember like this is a video of me going to my first game that he was playing pro, like whatever. So I started posting like almost like vloggy type style things of like me traveling to go see him, my first game, watching him as a pro. And I would do like the photo ones, or I'd like film things. And every time I posted something about hockey, it would go viral. Like not viral as in like 5 million people, but like I would say most of them sit around like 100K, 200K views. And I was
mine
like,
sit over like at least over 10.
Yeah, agreed.
Without fail.
Agreed. And then like a lot of them have gone even more. I think the most I've gotten is probably like 200 on one. And ever since I got my job, I did go private because I just didn't feel comfortable having like the players that I was talking to and everything being able to like look that up online. Like that's an area of my life that
so valid,
especially in the role
like
that I
player
hold.
Confidentiality with your clients,
and
like,
I want
so
them
fair.
to keep seeing me as like a professional, like not like some, I don't know. It's my own.
So valid. You're so valid on it.
I haven't posted one in like almost a year, but
all
the hockey ones went viral, and the comments, I mean, like
we were talking about
this earlier. It's just a little bit ridiculous. The video that probably went the most viral was one where some like anonymous account, I don't know, I feel like it might be somebody that I know that like created a false account to be able to do this. Like it came out a little too personal for it to just be like an anonymous person. But like basically was trying to insult me, being like, your whole personality is your boyfriend. And I was like, I'm literally sitting here getting my doctorate in psychology.
Yeah, like what?
And you're trying to tell me that my whole personality is my boyfriend. Like I choose to share the hockey stuff, A, because it's more entertaining for other people, but also because like I live and breathe school and work every single day, that it's nice to disconnect from that online sometimes.
Like, and leave me alone.
Right, just share the like fun hockey stuff. But like my friends started like clapping back at this girl or whoever it was, and that made the video blow up because there was so much more engagement in my comment. I was like, thanks.
There's a beef off the comments.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? I have like 1,000 followers. Like, what are we doing?
Why are we actually going off?
So stupid.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, like there's definitely been some like hurtful comments about like, yeah, my whole life revolving around them. There's been a couple that have like insulted my appearance, which has definitely been like a little bit sensitive.
Whack.
You always get the comments like, oh, he's cheating, he's doing, because it's
that's
the
one you get I get that
much.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like you and his 3 girlfriends have fun, and I'm like,
I know. Or like, how many girlfriends does he have on the road? And I was like, okay, like I know it's such a stereotype that like all athletes cheat and like whatever, but like not all of them do. Like I promise.
Like I also have enough self-respect,
right?
That like, guys. Trust me, if something was happening that I wasn't okay with,
right,
I wouldn't be
You'd
here.
be gone. Yeah, exactly.
Doses.
Yeah, see ya. Like
no. If I'm gonna come on here and like preach that you guys don't put up with that shit, like why would I sit here and put up with that shit?
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, like there was a lot, but it's just crazy to me that like it kept going viral and like so many people, again, it's like the glamorization, like, oh, I wish that was me. Does he have any single friends? That's my dream, living my dream. And I was like, again, you guys are seeing the like filtered view I'm sharing when I get to go to Winnipeg and when I get to just hang out and have fun. You're not seeing the fact that it took me 12 hours to get here on 2 different flights, and this is the first time I'm seeing him in 3 months. Like, you're not seeing that.
We literally have been bawling on the phone every fucking
day. Yeah, like on FaceTime every night. Like, this is so hard. And so yeah, I mean, on the plus side of TikTok, like it has brought me to meet a lot of really cool people. I've definitely made some like friends in the hockey world that I've met through TikTok. I've met some really cool fans. Like I had one fan for his AHL team that commented on a TikTok that I posted when I was there around Christmas of last year, and like she was like, oh my gosh, we're a big fan of him, like we're gonna make a sign at the next game. So like really positive interactions. But I've definitely also had a few like questionable interactions. Obviously the hate comments are not great, but
you can ignore the hate comments.
You can ignore them. Like, you can ignore them, and like honestly,
there is an extent, but you can
like,
ignore them, and you can also like block words out. Like,
and delete and like do whatever. But like, this is the first time I'm talking about this online. There was one individual who I did get connected with through TikTok.
You're pausing is criminal.
She did sort of fabricate, not just to me, but to a whole group of people. I don't use the word wag very often, but just for simplicity, we're going to use it in this context.
And wag, what does wag mean?
Wives and girlfriends.
Of like
professional
the athletes?
Okay. Yeah, it's usually used for like sports, professional sports. So I'll use it in this context, although I do not refer to myself with that ever. It's so gross to me. But she essentially faked being a wag, specifically a hockey wag, as sort of a way, I think, at least, to get in with like a whole bunch of the girls on various teams, NHL, AHL, kind of across the board, even in Europe. Even in Europe, yeah. I mean, a lot of the guys kind of come back and forth and whatever. And so she made jackets, she made customs for people, and would sort of use being a wag, again, a fake wag, but a wag, as her way of like making friends with all of the girls.
Like, what do you mean a fake wag?
So
wait, what the
I'm not gonna say her name, but there are gonna be so many people who can easily figure out who this is.
There's probably gonna be so many people that like literally don't even know.
Yeah, and there's also people, I'm not the first person to speak about this that knows. The way I found out that it was all fake was another wife of a player posted on TikTok, and I saw it, and it just kind of clicked in my brain. I had already been questioning some things at that point, and I was like, I think she might be talking about this person. So I actually messaged her, and she was like, yep, that's exactly who I'm talking about. Can I add you into a group chat with a few other girls?
No.
And yeah, so there's like 7 of us in this group chat that were all affected by it, which is awesome that I like have friends from that. I guess we kind of like trauma bonding. Yeah, trauma bonding. But like it's pretty effed up. And yeah, so basically she was fake dating a player, an NHL player. And what I mean by that is that she would well, first of all, she would just tell people, like, I'm dating so and so, and we've been dating for this long, had a whole backstory of how they met and, like, all these things.
Told.
Yeah, like, fully told. I guess he used to play for the AHL team where she lives, and so she used that as, like, the backstory of how they met through, like, mutuals or whatever, and then he ended up playing for an NHL team a little bit further, but she would, like, go. I don't know. I'm assuming she actually did go, because, like, she would post pictures, like, at games and stuff, but obviously, like, she would make it look like he invited her. Like, she'd buy boxes at games, at like away games and home games, and would just like show up. And again, because she made customs, she would make customs for girls on different teams, including herself, for this guy. So like, it was very believable. There were definitely a couple things that got me questioning early, but like, I was like, you don't imagine somebody to do that at all, right? Like, you're not sitting there thinking,
like, would you go to the wives' room and stuff?
Yeah, because
you're
she was friends
kidding.
With them. Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she would travel to away games and be like, he bought me tickets, like he did, and I was like, this is costing you a lot of money. But yeah, so she kind of weaseled her way in, and
which has a savings account.
Yeah, literally.
For hoaxes.
Yeah, and like basically for doing like by doing all the customs and then also like putting on this persona of like dating a player, she gained trust from a lot of girls, myself included. And so she would use that in a way to like gather information about like the drama and like the tea on teams, to the point where like when I was sort of first getting into our team in the AHL and I was like trying to find my way and like figure out who to message and do all these things, I was like talking to her about it, like confiding in her in a way, being like, I'm really nervous, like I'm anxious about all these things. And she was like, oh, like I know this person who used to play on this team, who knows this person who's still there, like why don't I get you in touch with this person? And again, like I'm glad I'm still in touch with those people, because we all kind of went through this together, like collectively. But like I shared things with her that like I felt comfortable sharing because I thought she genuinely understood it, because she was dating a player, and I felt like she genuinely cared and like wanted to help another girl through what she had been through. And like to find out that was all a lie, like probably like 8 months later, is like pretty ridiculous. Yeah, it like definitely like hurts your trust of people a little bit, like
especially within like the girlfriends community there, like,
right?
That must be like,
it's kind of a safe space, I think, for a lot of people. Like the
where,
hockey,
like now it's
been tainted.
It's confusing too.
Yeah. So that did happen.
We met how did she like post pictures with him and stuff? Like
she would she would post. So that was one of the things that stood out to me really early, was that there was barely any photos of them together that looked anything more than like a fan interaction. But again, in my brain, you're not thinking that somebody would go to such extreme lengths to like fake a whole ass relationship for multiple years.
Like that's too extreme.
Right. That I was like, okay, well maybe they just keep a private, like
you
that's
could even
pretty
feel
common.
Like bad about yourself that you're like thinking,
questioning and doubting someone's character that way. Like, yeah, of course not. But like she would post pictures with him, and then would also post pictures like that were like made to seem like they were him, which someone found later. Some of them were like fully just screenshots off of like Pinterest or whatever, of like shadows on a beach or like whatever. And then there'd be other pictures that she would like Photoshop, I guess, of something to like make it seem like they were on FaceTime, or like that he, anytime she like got flowers, she would like make it seem like they were sent from him, like all of these things. But like I'm pretty sure he fully has another girlfriend, and like all, yeah, like it's horrific. It's yeah.
Imagine being the other girlfriend.
Yeah,
I would throw hands.
I too would be like livid. I would probably file like some kind of report.
I would be in court live.
Yeah, it's so bad. So yeah, that was unfortunately
That's awful.
Yeah, unfortunately that was actually one of my first, or actually it probably was my first like true exposure to like a quote, again fake, but for all intents and purposes in the moment, like my first exposure to a hockey, like professional hockey wife or girlfriend. I hadn't met anyone else up until that point. I have now, thankfully. But it's, yeah, it was crazy.
That's fucked.
It was like March maybe when I found it. I found out like this year. Like I had been talking to her since probably around this time last year. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, again, it sucks that we have to be, right? But unfortunately, this isn't the only one that's happened. Like, it's the only one that I've been personally affected by, but like, some people probably know there was like a 9-part series or something that some girl released about her friend fake dating Jack Hughes. Like, people are crazy. Yeah, and like, I don't like using that word, but like, it's truly, it is truly crazy.
It's just like a distorted sense of reality.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
delusion.
what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I don't know if this girl like knew that she was lying and like did everything on purpose, or if it started out that way and then to a point she actually started to believe it was true. Because like, to take something that far is so like, I just can't even believe it. And like,
there's no
sincerely,
way you still like believe that.
Right. And like, I sincerely hope, like, I don't talk to her anymore. The second she even caught wind of me knowing the truth, she blocked me on everything before I even had the chance to confront her about it. I think she saw that some of the other girls in that group chat followed me on Instagram and so started to realize that I had figured it out. So I never got the chance to confront her about it, and knowing what I know from the other girls, if I had confronted her about it, I would have been blocked anyway. So whatever. But I sincerely, no. And like, honestly, I just like, as fucked up as it is, and like, as much as it affected me, I sincerely hope that she's getting the help that she needs.
No, but actually,
because to be at that level
of delusion
and like falsification and like distortion of your reality, whether she knows it or not.
Whole reality.
Yeah, like, it's terrifying. And I just hope that she's being taken care of, because to live your whole life like that, even for multiple years, which is what she's been doing at this point, like, it's pretty crazy.
That's scary.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first experience. Really good.
Yay!
Love that. Welcome to professional hockey, Lauren.
Here's a crazy person.
And I was like, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, when you're already in a vulnerable state and feeling outside, like I was coming into the league, just being long distance and
like having that as your first, that sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't set you up to feel great moving forward, but again, I've met some really great people, so that has been very helpful. It was just a really unfortunate introduction. to say the absolute least. Yeah.
Falsifying your whole life is a little bit crazy.
Just a smidge.
A little red flag. It's okay. If I was the girlfriend, there would be a class action lawsuit in
honestly,
the
kudos
Supreme
to her
Court.
for not doing more.
Welcome to my 30-part series on this crazy bitch.
I honestly could do a 30-part
No,
series.
like Brooke Schofield, like what's his name thing, like 2.0.
I know. Like, dang. I have the screenshots. I have proof. So many things. It's just, I don't feel like I need to do anything. At this point, I feel bad for her. Yeah. I'm fine, like, in terms of I've actually made real connections with real people now that are actually dating the players that they say they're dating, because I see them in real life.
But that sucks that you feel like you have to see it in real life.
Right, it does a little bit. Isn't that crazy?
Sorry, that's so scary.
I know. It's like, I need like proof. I need
like, are you dating or not?
I don't know anymore.
We've been dating for 5 years. I need him to tell me that.
Right. I need like
I need his mom
proof.
to tell me that right here, right now. That you've been at Thanksgiving for like 10 years.
Right.
Like,
that you're locked in before I like tell you anything about myself, because we've tried that once and it did not go well. So yeah, definitely feeling a little more guarded, specifically with the people that I meet online. Yes. Obviously, the people I meet in person, it's very different. You know, their boyfriends are friends with mine. We kind of all share a mutual space. Yeah, but with people that I meet online, I'm definitely a little bit more skeptical. Yeah, especially if there's not super concrete proof. As in, like, they're married and share a last name or something, you know.
And have children and
dog. Then maybe I'll believe it.
Then maybe I'll believe it right away, but even then, that's a little
still proceeding with caution.
Still gonna tiptoe around that one, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Talk about something that sparks your anxiety.
Yeah, thanks. Talk about insecurity and talk about like just confusion.
Yeah, it was a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. That was like the abbreviated version, so that I'm trying not to spill so much. Again, there's going to be people that instantly know who I'm talking about, especially when I said that she makes customs, but it is what it is. Honestly, she did it to herself, so.
Well, no shit. Like, on the note of mental health, some people do have disorders.
Right. And should be getting
help.
And should get help. And again, genuinely, like, I mean this so genuinely. I hope that she is. because I just can't imagine living under such a heavy lie or like such a distorted view of reality. Like, yeah.
Well, she would have had to convince herself otherwise. Like,
Right.
she would have to. Like, there's no way you can live that for that many years and like not.
I think she did. Her parents also knew. I think. Well, like her parents would like go with her to games and stuff. So like I think
so it's
she believed
very
it.
Distorted.
Yeah. Well, or she believed it enough to like even tell her like closest people. Yeah. So it's sad. At the end of the day, I think it's really, really sad that somebody felt like they needed to do that in order to feel like I will say like community. Yeah, like hockey girlfriends and wives are like some of the nicest people you're ever gonna meet. Like if she was just making customs, people would have invited her to games regardless.
Yeah, no matter what.
People would have like been friends with her. You don't need to put on this fake, yeah. Because now what's happened is that you've lost all those people because everyone caught you in a lie, and now you're left with nothing, and that's also really sad.
Yeah, like just being yourself is literally gonna get you farther than anything else could have in that moment in time. Like you don't need to go and fabricate any of this. Like I would have like it's like that girl like you reached out to like to show you around, right? Like if this girl reached out about a jacket and stuff and said, "Hey, I'm in Winnipeg at this time. Like, would you want to come with me?" Yeah, absolutely. Come over before. I'll take you up. Like, come with me. Like, there none of that needed to be fabricated. Maybe. Long story short, she maybe might have ended up with him and married him that way. Yeah, but you're not going to get there from there. So. If that's your dream / passion, please don't make it up. Right. And just be yourself and you'll get to where you want to go. Yep. It's, yeah, wow. Crazy. Okay, well, I might even end that on the mental health note here. Yeah. But, yeah, like, I think, like, honestly, our takeaways, like, if we're going to give them our, like, 2 cents takeaways on this episode, what would you say, like, if you're going to take anything away from Zilkins Vision, you're going to take away from, like, being wag. Yeah. God, that word. Like, having this, like, this different lens from glamorization. Yeah. Like, what would you tell them to, like, leave with?
Yeah. I mean, I think on the note of kind of, like, Zilkins Vision, the general mental health piece, like, just talk about things, like, a lot of these things are shared, normal, perfectly okay human experiences. We don't need to pathologize them. You don't have to label yourself if you don't want to. And you also don't have to go through it alone because most people feel that way at least sometimes. Maybe not as often or as intensely as you might, but like a lot of people experience those things and it's okay to talk about it, especially in stigmatized contexts like sports, where it's still not being talked about that often compared to the general population. And I think the other thing that I would say as like a takeaway is just like, I don't know, I almost want to say like not everything is as it seems like online. I think that's where the glamorization piece has come from, is that people, whether it's the TV show that we talked about or on TikTok or whatever,
a highlight reel.
You're sharing a highlight reel. And just it's not all that it's cut out to be, I think, or like advertised as. Obviously, again, I said this right at the beginning.
You love your best friend.
I love my best friend. I love watching him do what he loves to do. Like I rarely see people with the degree of like passion and commitment to what they do as a career that I see with athletes in general. Like I think it takes a really high level of commitment, but like Danny specifically is just such a like driven person. When it comes to hockey, that it's just so fulfilling to get to like watch that and to get to be a part of that with him is so fun. And I've met great people and had a lot of opportunities to do things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do without that. And also we live thousands of kilometers away, minimum of 2 flights, overnight layovers. I see him once every 3 months. I saw him for 3 days and that was it. And I'm not seeing him again for another month and a half. Like we've been bounced around. When this contract is over, we don't know where we're going to be going. Like there's a lot that comes with it that people don't necessarily see unless I think you've either been through it yourself or you know somebody who's actively going through it or has been through it in the past. And so don't over glamorize it. Yeah. I guess is the key. And like
don't go into it like thinking like the last thing Lauren's doing is like going into this like looking, hey, I want a hockey boyfriend. Oh, I found Danny. Yeah. It's I found my best friend in it just so happens that
Yes.
he is a driven athlete.
And that he's talented. Yeah, like when I met him, he was good, but he was not great. When
But
we first met,
he's
there
your
was
friend.
no, like, the NHL wasn't even on his radar. Like, we didn't think that was a possibility. That all happened within the last probably like 5 years. But I just fell in love with the person and what he,
Person in the process.
right. It's the same way that he fell in love with me. Like, I didn't know at that age what I was going to be doing with my life and my career. He doesn't care. Like, he fell in love with the person. But yeah, like there's a lot of good that comes with the hockey life. There's also a lot of challenge and adversity, and you sign up for it. Like, I know that. Obviously, I know that. And there's people that say that too. Like, if I ever were to post a TikTok, even when you posted the TikToks, like kind of not complaining, but being like, this is the reality. People like fight back.
Oh, people are like, why are you mad?
Yeah, you
like,
signed up for this.
Said?
And like, yes, you do sign up for it. But again, you sign up for it because you fell in love with the person.
Yeah.
Not because you want that lifestyle that like this number of people
like
in the hockey world get.
Perfect.
Yeah, again, not all of us are dating or married to the Nathan McKinnons and Connor McDavids of the world. There's like
most
4.
of us are not.
Most of us
There's
are
like
not.
4 of them who are, and
yeah,
they just got married. So
yeah, that's the takeaway, I think. But.
Well, but yeah, I'm really glad that I had this opportunity and I got to pick your brain because you were a fucking genius. I love talking with you.
Thanks.
And on top of that, I definitely like foresee we can work together in the future on stuff. Thank you so much for being here. I had so much fun, and thank you to whoever dropped that anonymous message. I'm so thankful for it.
I have a feeling I know who it is. So if I'm right, I'll send you a text later.
Okay, that's so sweet. I love that. And like, I'm really glad, grateful, everything that we got this opportunity. And you guys have any ideas for future guest episodes, please let me know. The Dropbox is going to be linked in my bio. Other than that, that's it.
Awesome.
I thank you guys. Not thank you. Have an amazing week. Bye, homies.